Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending this, our first press conference for 2024. My name is Donovan Stanberry, Campus Registrar. As is well known, our principal, Professor Denzel Williams, assumed the position on the 1st of August 2023 at the beginning of the current academic year. As is customary and expected, when there is a change of administration, the head usually comes with some new transformative ideas in terms of moving the academy forward within the frame of our 2022-2027 strategic plan. And principal has come and has articulated a vision. He has identified critical initiatives to be pursued in order to achieve the objectives of that strategic plan. And he has mobilized a team to assist him in executing and realizing that vision. That team is here with us today, and I'm happy to welcome members of our senior management who are here. All our deans are present, the head of our library, graduate studies, strategic planning, our campus bursar, our deputy principal, and I want to particularly welcome Mr. Dennis Cohen and Mr. Joseph Taff from the private sector, who the principal has enlisted their support in terms of assisting us in achieving some of the transformational initiatives. Thank you, press, for coming. I'm quite impressed by the turnout, and I know we're also live, so I welcome those who are online. So our format is going to be very simple. Principal will make a statement, and thereafter we will entertain some questions. Thank you so much, Principal.
Very good morning all, and welcome and thank you so much, especially to our friends in the media. So good to see so many of you and so many familiar faces. It's a happy Monday morning, and we are very pleased to be here this morning to interact with members of the press and members of the community to roll out in a little bit more substantive way the plans for our Mona campus. As Registrar indicated, we do have a very ambitious agenda, and I would like to use this opportunity to engage with the press and with other stakeholders in the community to talk about our impressive agenda. So I'm going to make a few general comments, and then what I would like is for us to open for questions and reactions from the media and members of our senior management team as well. So in the interest of time, I think I will stick to my comments, and then we will have greater interaction going forward. So colleagues, one and all, let me start by saying how pleased I am to be here this morning. And as you know, I took on the role of campus principal on August 1, 2023. And since then, I think it has been a very rewarding journey, despite the challenges that we face in our financial architecture. I would like to really thank the team of deans, executive management and senior management, faculty, staff, students, alum, and all stakeholders for the tremendous love and support shown over this period. Without this, the successes that we have had to date would not be possible. However, despite the challenges, there's a lot of hope based on the tremendous opportunities that lie within our internal and external environments and are awaiting to be harvested. The UWI team at the Mona campus is seized of these opportunities, and having carefully analyzed the environment within which we operate, we are ready to harness those opportunities. We therefore would like to update our stakeholders on where we are in achieving our goals as we position the campus in this new environment. We have seen tremendous successes at our Mona campus over the years. The administration wants to build on those successes of the last 75 years as we further the transformation of our Mona campus. I would like to especially thank my predecessor, Professor Dale Weber, and his team for steadying the ship during the turbulent times of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now is the time to advance the transformation of the campus, having emerged from the pandemic and other exigencies. The transformation requires a new ethos going forward, and this new ethos will start with a recentering of the operations of the campus to focus on the core business of the academy, of teaching and learning, research and innovation, and thought leadership. The financial issues of the past have really preoccupied us for a long time, but we have to get beyond those and ensure the campus continues to focus on building the relevant human capital to propel national, regional, and global developments. So, as we think through where we are as a campus, we really have a shared vision to become a global activist academy that works for the people. And our mission, as we think through how the new ethos will work, is really to become the knowledge powerhouse for human capital development in Jamaica and the wider world that will facilitate a national innovation ecosystem fit for purpose for 21st century society and economy. To achieve our vision and mission, the campus is embarking on a number of critical activities over the short to medium term to position it for the future. These include but are not limited to one. We are restructuring our business processes and organizational design to derive greater levels of efficiency and streamline our revenue-generating areas of the campus under the aegis of our major transformational project dubbed Operation RTG. And so today, I would really like to also thank the services of our private sector colleagues who have really come on board to support the transformation of our campus. And I would like to especially acknowledge and recognize Mr. Dennis Cohen, former Deputy Manager at the National Commercial Bank Group, and also Mr. Joe Taff, former CFO for Grace Kennedy Group and Remittance Service, Money Services actually, as well. We really want to thank them because they have decided to offer service to the UII in helping us with the restructuring and the transformation of our processes, and they are doing it pro bono. And I think that's a big part to say as well. Thank you very much. So while we look at Operation RTG, which really stands for Restructuring, Transformation, and Growth, as a major transformational project, and we will talk a little bit more about that, we're also doing things in other realms of the campus as well. We are restructuring our balance sheet so that we can free up liquidity in the short term. We will have a specific press conference dealing with this particular issue, so I don't want to delve too much in that now, but suffice to say, we really hope that having restructured our balance sheet within the very short term, we're able to at least save about 400 million annually in terms of this new exercise that we're doing with our balance sheet, yes? So we will talk a little bit more about that, but as you would appreciate, markets are very sensitive, so we can't do too much information at this point in time because we're at a critical stage of the negotiation within the private sector, private capital market at this point. We're also looking at how we're revamping pricing and fee structure for general commercial operations on our campus. This is a very, very important area for our operations, and we hope that we are able to generate at least $1 billion from this exercise over academic year 2024-2025. So we're taking the time in academic year 2023-2024 to look very, very closely at our pricing mechanisms on the campus. Pricing for our programs, pricing for all the operations in terms of the fees that we charge our commercial operations, and we're going to make sure that we actually have the most appropriate pricing mechanism to keep us competitive in the marketplace. So our self-financing programs, for example, which is a big part of these commercial operations, account for at least $2.5 billion to our bottom line annually. And that really requires some proper thinking and proper streamlining so that we can get the most optimum value from those operations as well. So we're revamping our pricing and our fee structure on the campus. We also want to monetize our physical assets to generate revenues and reduce costs. And again, there will be significant discussion around these in terms of our physical asset on the campus. But just an example, we have our housing stock in what we call College Commons across the road. And we intend to revitalize that particular area of our operations in terms of our physical infrastructure. And based on the calculations that we are now looking at, that should save us another $100 million annually once we actually get this off the ground. So we are looking at some very short-term measures here that, as I said, will assist with our liquidity in the very short term to the tune of about $1.5 billion over the next academic year. In addition to these immediate measures that we are taking to deal with our liquidity situation in the short term, we do also have some long-term growth projects that will further enhance our financial position in the long run. These include, but are not limited to, one, we're looking to establish a school of global health to meet the demands in the global health industry. And again, we have our project leads here. They will talk more specifically about these at the appropriate time. So we are going to look at the global health arena, and we're going to see how, as a campus, we're going to play in that arena to actually fulfill the demands of global health so that we can generate revenue for our campus as well. We're also looking at the knowledge process outsourcing operation. Generally, we call them call center. But as a university, we're going upstream, and we're looking more at knowledge process outsourcing in various areas. And we're looking not only as a source of revenue for the campus, but we're looking at a way for our students to earn while they are learning as well. So we're looking at things like legal process outsourcing, animation. We're looking at accounting processes and all those things. We have the raw material here, and those raw materials will now be suited and ready for the knowledge process outsourcing sector very, very soon. So we're putting a project around that, and we have our project leads that will talk to us on that as well. We also want to establish an institute for short cycle courses, short cycle programs, so that we can actually have more persons doing executive training with our campus in a very concerted way. So we will actually add on top of that what we are considering a concept called the Mona credit. And the Mona credit will give the short cycle course, the participants in our short cycle course, the ability to actually use or transfer those credits to move towards degree programs at the appropriate time. We will look at the structure around those, and we want to build that into our short cycle courses so that persons can use that to pursue further studies or also to get their professional qualifications when the appropriate time arises as well. So these are some long-term initiatives. They are not going to be in the next 12 months or so, but at least these are initiatives that we are laying the foundation to build on the short-term financial issues that we have seen, that we have spoken about earlier, so that they will give us some a proper pipeline of new revenue stream for our campus as we go forward. But besides these long-term growth projects, we will also have a program of activities to provide support and infrastructure for these works. These are going to include, again, an infrastructure development fund to focus heavily on modernizing the infrastructure, teaching and learning infrastructure of our campus. But importantly, we also want this fund to invest in our sporting infrastructure in a significant way, and so that we can develop athletes that are traded on the global sporting industry. Can you imagine? We have a faculty of sports at our Mona campus. We have a faculty that is dealing with the creative industries and the creative arts, etc. We have an Institute of Cultural Studies located in our faculty of humanities. If we combine these and we starting to think about producing the creative, participating in the creative economy, sports is a part of the creative economy. And so one of our aims that we're looking for is to say, over the next 5 years, would we be able to build athletes that are able to trade in the global sporting industry? It's a simple example. Say we have our football team in the Premier League, the most prestigious Premier League right now in the region. And if we can produce 1 or 2 athletes from our Premier League, and we should say sell them to, I don't want to call in the club name in the UK now, but say we should sell them to the lowest possible club in the United Kingdom, we can easily generate £1 million from just the transfer of our athletes. That's the vision we want to have for our sports program. We sell one athlete every 5 years. We sell one footballer, we sell one track athlete, Dr. Mansingh. We're talking about £2-3 million that we could get into our coffers if we build our sporting industry, our sporting infrastructure properly. That's really what we're looking for. Sports is not just going to be here for recreation, but we can make a business out of it as well, and we have to invest in it to make a business out of it. The selling of athletes on the global stage is a big business, as you all know, and that is the kind of vision we have to have for our sporting infrastructure. We are also designing and we are also supporting a program of thought leadership to bring the cutting-edge research and innovation to the policymakers and the wider public. This is being done with the support of our private sector, and most of you would know by now, the VM Group has partnered with us to launch what we call the Mona Distinguished Lecture Series, and they have committed around $20 million over 5 years to this series, where we have a set of discussion and we bring, as Rex Nettleford usually say, we bring gown to town. We make people know about the research that we're doing on our campus. We make them know about the areas that are there for policy and can help them to improve policy making, and those conversations can lead to something big in the future. So we have developed a series around that, and we are thankful for the support of the VM Group, which has agreed to sponsor this to the tune of about $20 million over a 5-year period as well. We also, through our Deputy Principal Office, we are looking at a set of initiatives that are geared towards student success and retention, because we believe that as the Mona campus, our duty doesn't stop when we get the students applying to our campus. We have to get them to apply. Having applied, we have to retain them, and having retained them, we have to ensure their success at the end of the day. So what we're doing as a campus is to look very broadly at the issue of student retention, student success, and through the Deputy Principal Office, we're building a coalition on the campus of like-minded people that are going to ensure we improve the customer service to our students, we improve all of the processes that are going to ensure their retention and their success as well. And the Deputy Principal and his team will talk a little bit more about that. But we're very serious about student retention and student success as well. So these are all far-reaching initiatives. These are all far-reaching programs that are geared towards, as I said, the revitalization of the transformation of the Mona campus. And these are issues that are dealing with finances. They're issues that are dealing with processes. They're issues that are dealing with teaching and learning, with research and innovation, and thought leadership. So overall, the Mona campus is on a path to transformation, so that we will build a stronger foundation for the next 70 years of our operation. As a campus, we're mindful of our role as a major player in the creation of human capital to support the national, regional, and global development of our societies. Therefore, we will position the campus using our skills and capabilities and through partnerships with industry, the government, and other players as part of the Triple Helix model to ensure that we facilitate balanced development for all. So Mona campus is on a path towards furthering the transformation. We are putting in the resources, we are putting in the human resources, the financial resources, we're building the partnerships, and we're working with all our stakeholders to make sure that at the end of the day, this place of pride for Mona is high and remains there, and Mona remains at the forefront of everybody's mind when it comes to academic success, academic integrity, and high quality academic institution. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Principal, for that concise but comprehensive outline of the way forward as we move forward with the #1 university in Jamaica and the Caribbean. And you can clap for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, having heard from the Principal, we now invite you to ask questions. The Principal and the team here are prepared to answer and give whatever clarification. Those online, you can also participate. So there's a a microphone there, so you can go there, identify yourself, and then we move forward. Can turn on the mic, I don't think.
I'm Dashan Hendricks from the Jamaica Observer. And, sorry, Professor, some of the mid-table teams you can send the students to, like Manchester United.
To keep it civil this morning. Yeah?
All right. On a serious note, though, you spoke about reviewing self-financed program, aligning to market dynamics to earn an extra $1 billion. Can you outline a bit more which programs you're targeting in that, and also for non-self-financed programs, especially those which are financed through subvention from regional governments and things like that?
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. So let me just be clear that what we spoke about in terms of fee structure is not just self-finance program. We have a number of other commercial operations as well, like we do facilities, we rent our facilities to, places like Burger King, KFC, and all of those kinds of people. So we have to look at the fee structure for those as well, and making sure that they are also competitive in terms of what we're doing. So all in all, we're talking about $1 billion that we're looking at. So it's not just the fees for the programs, but specifically as you talk to the programs now, we have to do a much deeper analysis. And I think you will be very familiar with the price elasticity of demand concept, Mr. Hendricks. And therefore, what we're doing is to deep dive into programs right across our faculties, and we're looking at what is the level of demand, the price elasticity of demand for those programs. We're looking at the prices, the change in demand, and how these things are operating, and say which are the ones that have the greatest impact in terms of the market dynamics, and how we can actually adjust those fees in order to make them in line. Because some of our programs are exceptionally underpriced, as you would appreciate, and because of the dynamics of how we operate, we have not been able to increase price in a significant way for a long period of time. I recall when I was at the business school, for about 10 years, we never changed the price of our MBA, but our MBA was always in high demand. So we have to look at the dynamics, look at these programs. I can't say specifically which exact program will be done now, but across the length and breadth of our self-financing programs, what we have to do is to address exactly those dynamics in terms of the price elasticity of demand, how things are shaping up there, and we can make a management decision as to how you move prices.
But your profile figure in the year, $1 billion.
Yes, about $1 billion, yeah, based on the numbers that we're running now. When you look at the numbers of program, the price change, the facilities that we're renting, the fee increases that we're looking at, aggregating all of that, you can do about $1 billion.
How much underpriced is the fee structure to the commercial entities right now?
The fee structure to commercial entities?
At least anecdotally.
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess. You know why? I don't want anybody to say what we're going to increase our price by before we actually do it. So I wouldn't want to hazard a guess in that regard, yeah? But what we do know, as I said before, we're looking at the general market dynamics and making sure that our prices are very competitive, taking into consideration our idiosyncrasies as well. Because as you know, as a university campus, we are at our peak during our semester period, but during the summer period, we're at a lull as well. And as a result of that, your prices have to reflect that volatility in the market as well. Because while you have maybe 15, 16,000 students passing through from September to December, then you're going to have a lull between late December, late January, and then come again, you have a similar lull between May and August as well. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're making your price point, because if the enterprises are here on the campus and they don't have that captive market during that period, how do the prices reflect that kind of dynamic, yeah? So those are the things that we're working through, Mr. Hendrickson, yeah?
But also the subvention, the non-self-finance programs.
That's the UGC portion. Yeah. Well, those fees are fees that, as you know, have to be approved by the University Council. Well, all fees have to be approved by the University Council. But what we do know is that what we try to do is to keep them within the realm of at least the inflation price point at the particular point in time. We don't try to do a runaway increase in those fees. We're looking through them now, and we're looking at what the possibilities are for increases, because as you would appreciate, again, we have absorbed a significant portion of the cost towards those programs for a long time. So we have to look at how we deal with those things. But there is no guarantee that we will increase fees. These are conversations between our council, our management, and other players as well. But what we do have greater control over is the self-finance programs, and therefore we will go in that direction. Yes?
Thank you. Any other question?
Good morning.
Morning.
Jerome Williams from the Jamaica Observer. You mentioned carrying out significant work to enhance physical infrastructure. You also mentioned investing in the sporting industry. But can you give some more specifics on some of the specific areas that you'll be looking to improve on the infrastructure?
Right. Excellent. So in terms of areas for improvement on our infrastructure, our Mona Bowl is going to be a major area that we're targeting to upgrade in terms of the infrastructure there, the sporting facilities, the field, and all the other facilities around in terms of the whole ideas about recreational sports. We're looking at completing grandstand and the field, and also the lighting and those things. Also, our library. Our library needs a major upgrade as well. Our library infrastructure here will need a major upgrade in order to bring it up to standard to a world-class library for a world-class university. So again, we are looking at partnerships as to how we can get our library infrastructure going. We're also looking at new lecture theaters and new classrooms. We're also looking at a new campus center that can host a lot of our operations as well. We are also just last week I think, we did a ceremony to acknowledge and celebrate the handover of over 200 pieces of painting from a major philanthropist in Jamaica. And immediately we recognize we don't have a museum for our campus, and we are going to look at how we can actually get that kind of operation going, because the museum is not just only there for revenue generation, but is a part of our teaching and learning activities as well. So we want to look at those kinds of operations and projectize these things, have the necessary funding coming in, where there are going to be partnerships. We work with partnerships. We're going to be grant funding. We work with grant funding to get these things off the ground, but they're in the plan so that we can start a major infrastructure overhaul of our campus. But urgently, we're looking at the sporting facilities, and we're also looking at our library as well.
Principal, good morning. Luke Douglas from Loop News. Just like to ask a follow-up to the previous questions. It seems to me, based on your outline, it may become more expensive for students to attend UA Mona. I'm sure there are prospective students out there who may be feeling a little nervous hearing that the need to collect this $1.5 billion. So that's one.
Well, 1.5 billion is not for only fees, though. Remember that, please.
Certainly,
yes.
certainly. But
fees may just be a small portion of that. Let me just make it very clear.
Okay.
The fees for students may be a very small portion of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really talking about, as I said before, the broader fee structure for commercial operations activities that we do as a campus. So the burden will not so much be on the students, but also on the other, private operations that we actually do here as well.
So it's fair to say that the increase to students may be manageable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just fair to say, but the truth is that, as I said before, those of you who are familiar with the price elasticity of demand concept, that's really what will guide us, because we will not increase any fees in a way that is going to harm both the customer and also the enterprise. So that's why we have to make very clear, because if we do a model and it says, for example, the demand for accounting is quite elastic, yeah? Therefore, the price increase cannot be anything substantial that will destroy both the customer and the institution. So we'd have to model that in a way to see it, and that's why you need proper scientific analysis to do this thing and not just pick out an increase out of a hat. Because if we say the demand is elastic and we increase price by 13%, we may see an erosion in the complete customer base. So we couldn't do that at all. So I just want that to be very clear. But let me just say something, Luke, because this is important. While you say it may become more expensive for students to come to UWI, what you will also appreciate is that UWI actually has some of the cheapest offerings in the market right now. Yeah? So the students who are coming to UWI, they would appreciate that what their counterparts are paying to our competitors is far more substantial than what they're paying at the UWI. But we will not say that we're going towards where our competitors are. But as I said, we have to make sure that we ensure that we recover the cost of our operation, and then we can sustain these things.
And when you say competitors, you mean competitors abroad?
Both local, regional, and global.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into name calling now, but if you look at some of the people who are competing with, say, just our business degrees as a case in point, and you look at what a student pays here for a bachelor's in marketing, high quality degree, high class lecturers, high class facilities, and compare that with other places that they're paying 3 times that amount for a BSc in marketing in Jamaica. Yeah. Yes, it is. It is a fact. So it's a very important point to note. Yeah.
Understood.
Yes.
My other question: former opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, in his recent presentation, called for a reworking. I'm trying to understand his terms of the social contract between the university and the society. Do you think that is needed, and could you comment on that, please?
We will be hosting a forum on January 29 to look specifically at that issue right here in this room, so we invite all of you to join. But suffice to say that I think it's a debate that is worthy. It's a debate that we as a university are happy to engage in, because when we started in 1948, the kind of university that was in 1948 is not the kind of university you have in 2024. And so the question becomes, if the university structure and systems and outlook has changed, is that social contract that was agreed to in 1948 still relevant in 2024? 1948, we were the only game in town. 2024, there are 30 other games in town. So the real question becomes, exactly where in that hyper-competitive market will the Mona campus be playing? And we are very, very clear in our mind that we are not competing on cost. We're competing on quality. We're competing on innovation. We're competing on research and thought leadership. That's where we're positioning the Mona campus. So we're not going to go out there to be a mass producer of everything for everybody at the lowest possible price. That's not where our competitive edge lies. Our competitive edge lies in thought leadership, in research and innovation, in high quality scholarship. And that is the model that this campus is actually using to position itself within the marketplace that we're playing. So that new contract that we're talking about really has to be re-examined, because we're not just a place where you come, just get a degree and leave. We are a place that is a full-service university now. We offer almost everything within our university now. We're not just a liberal arts college that offer, marketing and communications. We are a full-service university. We have medicine, we have law, we have engineering, we have agriculture, we have humanities, we have social, every single thing. We're a full-service university. And being a full-service university, the question becomes, where do you position yourself in the competitive landscape? And I will proffer now that our positioning is one of differentiation, not cost. And that's how we will compete.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sashana Small from the Jamaica Gleaner. You mentioned a number of enhancements or renovations that will take place here at the UE, the library, the Mona Bowl. I want to know, to what extent will government funding be required for those projects?
Excellent. So, as you know, we're a public university, the government continues to make a substantial contribution to the running and the operation of our university. They make contribution, they give us a subvention, and as best as possible, we manage that subvention within our strategic intent and priorities. So it is not that we go to the government and say, you must fund the library, or you must fund the Mona Bowl, or you must fund this particular operation. What we do, we get a subvention from the government, and we say within our strategic priorities, these are the things that we will go out for. So we'll partner with the government, and if there is a situation where the government finds it fit to say, I will make this particular this capital investment in this particular infrastructure, we welcome that. But it is not that we're going to go to the government and say, you must do library, you must do museum, you must do football field. That's not how we generally do it. But we welcome the partnership as well. So what we will be talking about, Ms. Small, is to say how we can raise funding from our core operation to support those things, and also how we can raise funding from partnerships, you know, grant funding, and go into multilateral agencies, go into the private sector, have naming rights and those things. So we are looking at creative ways of doing this as well.
Okay, another question. The government has indicated a need to rebalance how it spends on education. As it stands now, it spends the most on tertiary education, as you know. How might a rebalance of government spending on education in favor of early childhood or primary education, how might that affect an institution like yours?
What I will say is that we need to be a bit abundantly cautious about responding to this, because we have not seen the formula for rebalancing. Until you know what the formula is, it's very hard for you to say the impact that it would have on your institution. Because what you don't know is whether rebalancing means that they are going to put the monies in say a student loan bureau, and then the student loan bureau gives students a voucher to come and encash with your university. That's one model of rebalancing. It could also be rebalancing mean that we're going to take your subvention, we're going to cut it, and we're going to give it to the pre-primary and stuff. We really don't know exactly what rebalancing is. And as a result of that, any response about the impact on our institution would be very speculative. But what I do know is that at the end of the day, funding education has to be the priority for all. Funding education is entirety, from preschool right up to post-secondary education. That should be the priority for all.
Okay, I have another question. What are your concerns, if any, in terms of the slow pace at which the National Higher Education Bill is taking shape?
National Higher Education Bill?
Yes. It was announced, I believe, in 2021, and then they mentioned it last year in January, and haven't heard anything about it since.
Well, as you know, the Patterson report is out, yes, which really is a part of the broader transformation of the education sector. What we do know is that the government has set up a task force headed by Dr. Adrian Stokes, and they're doing a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes in terms of implementation of the Patterson report. So what we have to do is to just follow closely the implementation part. I know that they've set up a secretariat. They've asked our own business school here to give them a kind of a project plan for the implementation. I know the implementation is on in earnest. So I think all of that will encompass the transformation of education. So the bill, plus the report, plus all of the other transformation taking place in terms of policy agenda and stuff. So what we really need to do is to follow closely the path that the transformation unit is actually doing their work. I'm comforted that under the leadership of Dr. Stokes, they are literally making some good progress. We saw where they hired a CEO for the transformation. They have, as I said, asked our own Mona School of Business here to do the project plan and the project work that is going on there, and work has started on the transformation. So let us evaluate the transformation against their work plan so we can better inform in terms of exactly the pace that they're going and really what, if there are any challenges that we can comment on. But until we get that first report, then it will be very difficult for us to say exactly about the bill as a standalone item, when we know that the bill is a part of a total transformation of the education sector.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good morning. Vanessa Mackenzie from Or today. I was quite pleased when...
Oh.
Hi, good morning. Vanessa Mackenzie from Or today. I was quite pleased when you mentioned the initiative for student success and retention. There has been concerns raised by some stakeholders that universities continue to produce graduates that are not per se meeting the demands of the 21st century marketplace, right? So I wanted you to speak on that, what the UII is doing as it regards to ensuring that their graduates are competitive in meeting those demands, whether you're going to merge certain courses, for example, journalism and marketing, stuff like that. So I wanted to get your response on that.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I would have asked each dean to comment, but because of the time constraint, I won't ask each dean because each dean would be very familiar with what is happening within their own jurisdiction and what they're doing for courses and stuff. But I'm going to give a macro response, and maybe later on you could interact with all of our deans and stuff to find out the specifics. But the general issue about student retention, student success, and work readiness, and all of these wonderful ideas is that as a university, we are very clear in our minds that we're educating a student, yeah? And we're educating a student so that they can be fit for any eventualities in society. We are not just training a student because we're not really a training institute per se. We're a higher educational institution that we educate you, and education makes you become trainable and you can move on. But suffice to say that what we're doing is to make sure that all our programs and our courses and stuff reflect also the dynamics of the market. So I can speak specifically, for example, when we were in the business school at Mona, what we did was to revamp our curriculum structure and how we advance new programs. The first thing that we do is that we have discussion with industry and say to industry, what are the things that you would like to see from our graduates? And having seen that, we have now gone on to say, okay, let us have a discussion with how is it that we incorporate these things within our courses and our programs. And therefore, when our programs are approved, we make sure that the things that industry say that they want are there as well. But we don't build our programs entirely just around industry because, as I said, we're a higher educational institution. So the general idea is that we're going to educate you for the future. But we try to reconcile the future with the present. And so we make sure our programs reflect the dynamics in the market, for example. So one of the things in the business school, and I think the Dean of Social Sciences is here, or Dean Ricketts is here, but one of the things we do in the business school now is that every new master's program that has come on board, they have to have a 3-month window where the students have to interact with industry, have to. So all new programs that are being designed, they have to have some interaction. So your MBA, for example, you spend, I think, 18 months in the classroom, and you go 3 months into the field, you take up a business problem, and you go and solve that problem, and you go back and you present it to the captains of industry. They take that solution and they move forward, and only after that you can actually graduate. So we are making significant transformation in terms of the work, preparing our students for the world of work. But as I said before, we do more than just prepare you for the world of work. We're actually educating you so that you are quite nimble to move from any job, any market, any industry. And I think that is the value added of a university like ours compared to, say, a university that is actually training people for a particular market. Because you see, the challenge you run when you go that route of just mere training is that once the economy restructures, you would appreciate that you're going to have significant structural unemployment. Yeah? And you don't want to do that because you don't know the length of time between the restructuring and the upgrading of skills to get to the new economy. So just an example, when we were an agrarian economy and we spent a lot of time doing sugar and bananas and stuff, the economy restructured from being an agrarian economy and we move into manufacturing and we move into services, etc. It is not an effortless task to pick up someone who was heavily steeped in the agrarian society to just transform to become a service-oriented person. It may take you a period of time, and that period of time to upskill and train those people is going to be, maybe it's too long, and you have chronic structural unemployment. That's what you don't want. But when you have people who are adaptable, who can easily be retrained from agrarian to services, etc., then the span of time between unemployment is so short that the structural unemployment does not become chronic. And that's why we have to be careful as a society that we don't just train people, but we educate them so that they're adaptable to all circumstances. And that is really the value added, I think, of the University of the West Indies.
Sorry, very last question from me, or questions. Before I ask the question I come to ask, I just want to dial back to the question about rebalancing for spending on education. I remember as an undergrad student here, that came up. I remember kind of aging myself now. In 2001, when it came up, we had a big meeting down in Taylor Hall where we were looking at it, and we met in this very room as students at the time to discuss it. And the model that was being proffered at that time was to take monies from higher education, tertiary level, and put it at the pre-primary and the primary level, because the argument then, and I'm going strictly from memory now, so I may not remember everything, but the argument then was that we needed to spend more money at the pre-primary and the primary level because we are having students coming up through the system who are not properly educated especially at the pre-primary level, and we were spending, the argument then again was that too much money was being spent at the top, and we're not bringing a lot of students up to the top to matriculate to the university, right? Are you saying in that no model has been offered by the government in terms of how to spend, that sentiment has changed, that they're not going to be taking, well, I know you say nothing has been proffered, but that was what was being offered at the time, 20 years ago, in terms of taking monies from the university. And that was, under that, we were asked, I remember in 2001, we who came in the year before, and our fees were grandfathered in which we never got an increase. But those who came in after us, their fees went up like this, through the roof, and we were at a lower level, even though we're in the same faculties, studying the same thing and stuff like that. Has that changed?
Well, as I said before, I can't speak to whether it has changed or not, but what I do know, I have not seen any policy position to say this is the rebalancing. So if it is happening in the background, then, I mean, I can't speak to that in any specificity. But what I will say, though, is that, as I indicated before, if we are going to develop the human capital of this country, which is a major source of our competitive advantage, the truth is that you have to spend on education at all levels of education, because the risk you run with what you have just described, I have not seen it, but what you have described, and responding to what you have described, the risk you run is that you bulge resources at preschool, primary, secondary, and you create a cadre of human capital that are numerate and literate. That numeracy and literacy now has to be transformed into new skills that are going to be needed for a modern economy. You're going to get those skills when you go higher up the value chain in education. And the risk you run if you don't fund education in its totality is that you have a bulge of people at the primary, secondary level who are numerate and literate, but are not able to transfer to the higher order skills, and therefore they are left behind when the economy transforms. Yes, because they will not be able to have the skills that are going to allow them to be able to be adaptable within the system as well. So that's why I'm arguing that what you really need is to fund everybody, to fund the entire system, and not take from Peter, pay Paul. Because that can leave you in a very tricky situation, that you have human capital resources that can go so far and no more.
But that was the argument we presented when we
Well,
were
I'm happy you
members of the
presented
guild.
that argument.
No, not me,
Yes?
the entire guild of students at the time.
Okay.
We sat in this room and presented that same argument that you gave. But the
And what was the
government at the
response?
time was saying, but we don't have the resources to do what you're proposing. But anyway, move on. You said you want the University of the West Indies to become a global activist academy.
Yes.
Explain to me what you mean by that, and especially in light of what we have seen in the United States with at Harvard, Penn, and MIT, and stuff like that. And the other thing, the last question I want to ask is just following on the infrastructure development program that you have outlined as well. In the 21st century going about, have you considered, I'm sure you have done, but just to outline more the considerations that you have had in mind in terms of this infrastructure development, in terms of the lessons learned coming out of COVID, in terms of how lessons are delivered, bad and good, and how the university campus will look in a new world, 21st century, where people are moving more towards AI and online learning and stuff like that.
Thank you very much. I'll take the last question first, because I think that's a very important consideration. And I kind of appreciate where you're going, which is, okay, the world is really moving more towards a kind of a technological revolution, fifth industrial revolution and stuff. Why do you need physical plant? I figure that's where you're going with this. The truth is that this is not either or, it is and. And we should never see policy and programs as either or. We normally need to see them as and. Because despite the fact that we have come out of COVID, and despite we have seen people doing online meetings and online this and that, there's always a need for gathering. We're social beings. There's always a need for people to come together at some place at some point. Yeah? And therefore, we would run the risk of not having the infrastructure to facilitate that coming together of people and allow somebody else to do it and lose out on that market space as well. So what we need to see is a kind of a blended modality in how we do things. I recall a piece of work that I was looking at recently, and I recall they asked the students about online, blended, full face-to-face. Overwhelmingly, the response to that survey was, we still need an interaction on our university campuses. We still need to be there. While we don't need to be there for 13 weeks, even 2 or 3 weeks out of the 13 we need to be there for. So the question is, how do you now build an infrastructure that is going to accommodate that kind of mercurial nature in terms of the attendance and stuff like that of people? But the truth is that you need the infrastructure. So the kind of infrastructure that we're talking about, as I indicated, notice the high priority areas, your library, for example. The library is not, and we have our chief librarian here, the library is not the place that you and I used to go and just pull up book from the shelf and stuff. It's a learning center now. A library is a place where you're meeting of the minds, and some of the best entrepreneurial minds, they have their little corner over there. They sit in there, they have their group discussion and stuff. That's a consideration of a library now. It's not just a place you pull a book from the shelf, you go to a desk and you sit and you look at it. So it's really a learning resource center, meeting place, incubation. All of these things are going to take place within your library infrastructure. So it's a modern kind of learning resource center that you're looking at, not the traditional library. Sporting facilities, again, whatever it is, you can't do sports on the computer. You have to literally be there to do sports. Yeah? So you can dream in your mind that you're kicking a ball on the field at Old Trafford, but at some point you have to go to Old Trafford to kick the ball to really feel what it is like. And that is why we are saying we are designing our infrastructure around some critical areas as well. It's not just a carte blanche infrastructure overhaul, but we are very deliberate about the high priority areas that we're looking at for infrastructure development and making sure that infrastructure development that we're doing can have full and proper utilization going forward. So that's really what we're doing. So it is not at the expense of the technological revolution. So we are going to invest in technology as well, because as you may know by now, I think the Vice Chancellor would have had a press conference talking about the digital transformation of the UII. And there's a major project that is going on now within the UII to digitize and do the digital transformation thing. We have a CIO there who can talk more about those things as well. But it is not at the expense of the physical plant. It is not either digital or the physical plant. It's digital and the physical plant. So that's how we're looking at this thing in its totality as well. But I like your first question about activism, because I think this is a really very important question. I think, Luke, you're the one who asked about Dr. Phillips's, observation about the social contract. The real question you ask yourself, therefore, is this: as a publicly funded university, what really is your role? Is it just to graduate some students and give them a piece of paper and they go out and get a nice job and they cocoon themselves somewhere off in some hills and, live in the best gated community and stuff, and watch the majority of the citizens in your society are struggling on the periphery. That cannot be the role of a university, a publicly funded university at all. Because remember, if you really think about it from a public finance perspective, we have roughly about 2.5% or so, of our people within the university sector. Do you recognize that it's really the greatest transfer of wealth? That you're thinking that the poor man who collects the garbage, who pays his taxes, that is a tax that is paying for you to come here. So it's a transfer of wealth. But he transferred that wealth to you so that you now can get the education and help to improve what he's doing so that he can now have better tools to collect his garbage, have better tools so that he can become the best mason. But he invested that in you to do that. So when we speak about global activism, we are saying that, listen to me, you come into a university like ours that is publicly funded, that people are transferring their wealth to you. It is not for you to just get a degree, move off and cocoon somewhere in the hills and having the best car, the best house, go to the most salubrious restaurants and stuff. That's not the role that you're supposed to play. Your role is to say, how do I get this resource that people have invested in me, and then I use that investment to make them their lives better off? That's what we're talking about, global activism. So we're attacking the big issues of the day for them: climate change, injustice, economic inequality, real issues. As an academy, we have to have our voices there as well. We can't just say we come here, we publish in the best journals, you get the high quality, high impact journals, and only 2 people read them. 2 people. Yourself and your professor. That can't be the role of the university. So we have to be very, very clear in our minds. That's not the kind of academy we want. We want an academy where our people are on the front line, being activists for social change, for good, because the investment the people have made in us now says that we must repay that investment. And I think that's what we're talking about as a global activist academy.
But if I may, 80% of us, and when we came in as students in undergrad, they look at all of us and say 80% of you will be gone from Jamaica in 3 years when you finish undergrad. I don't know if that still happens. I graduated undergrad 20 years ago. I don't know if that still happens right now, but still, you point out the garbage collector, the nurse, whoever, even us, pay our taxes to get the students here, but 80% still leave Jamaica, still leave the Caribbean to go abroad, and now we are stuck in what the World Bank calls the middle income trap, because we're not moving our economy beyond where it is to a higher level. How do we do that as a university? Is that part of what you'll be doing as a global activist, the social contract? Yeah. Yeah.
That's the idea, though, that when you think about it, okay, so that's a different problem that we're talking about in terms of migration and stuff, because there are benefits to it, yeah? Because if we're talking about building human capital, and that human capital is tradable across the globe, the question we really need to really interrogate a little bit more: how do we ensure that we extract the value from that human capital that we train and we send them somewhere else? That's another issue. It's not all bad. But really the big issue that we have to contend with is how do we build our economic infrastructure to ensure that we have the absorptive capacity, so that when you leave the university, the things that you want to do, we have facilitation of those within our own society. Because we can't stop migratory patterns. We just can't stop it. People migrate for various reasons and stuff. And the idea is not to stop it. The idea is to make sure that there's an alternative. And how do we build that alternative? Well, we have to look at the quality institutions we have. Institutions matter. Donny Roderick makes that very sound argument in One Economics Many Recipe. The quality of the institution matters. Meritorious systems matter. Yeah? You want to make sure that you have a labor market that actually pick people based on merit and not based on nepotism and all those kinds of things. Those things matter. You want to be able to have a labor market that when people leave a university, Joe, they know that I will go out and I will compete and I will get the job, not because I know Joe, I know Dennis. Yeah. So when you take off those structural inefficiencies in the labor market, those things now starting to present your economy as an alternative to people. So those are issues that you have to fix. You have to be able to have the absorptive capacity so that when people leave, the kinds of things that they want to do, they can find a place in Jamaica to practice those kind of things. So that's a different problem that we're having, and that is why as a university we have to also be on the front line to advocate for those inefficiencies and those rigidities in our labor market to be removed so that we can have a more efficient labor market where information is flowing. And I get to know that there's a job at NCB not because I know Dennis, but there's a job at NCB that I know because it is actually information efficient in the marketplace, and therefore it is not because a connection while you get it. Those things matter. Those things matter. So we have to look at how we deal with our labor market issues as well to make sure that we can retain our talents that we train. But as I said before, let us not look at migratory patterns as all bad, because really and truly what we need to do is to say how we can extract value from the human capital that we train. And once we do that, we're in good stead.
Thank you, Principal. Any other question? Okay. Almost 5 years, I've not seen such a concentration of media people, and it shows a tremendous interest in what we're doing here at Mona, and we thank you for the endorsement, and we urge you to go out there and help us to spread the good news and the message that Mona is here to stay, and we're only going to get higher and better. Thank you, senior management, for taking the time to come out and support Principal, and this awesome responsibility, all that the Principal has announced, is on our shoulder collectively to bring them to fruition, so that the next press conference, Principal, you can say, this is what we committed and this is what we have delivered. And those who are online, thank you so much for joining us. God bless you and have a good morning.